In a new op-ed, Liz Wheeler writes, "To win, conservatives must admit we are losing. And it's not just congressional seats at stake in the next election year. American culture is slipping away and falling into the hands of the radical left." Well, joining us now to tell us how we can fight back is host of the Liz Wheeler Show, Liz Wheeler. Liz, welcome to the show.
Lindsay, Sean, thanks so much for having me.
Yeah, first, congrats on the launch of your podcast. I urge everyone to tune in. It's fantastic. But I got to ask you, based on that op-ed, what do Republicans stand for anymore? That's, I think, the biggest problem right now, right? It's not lower or less government. It's not less deficit spending, because all of that, it's just like, we're not as bad is kind of the slogan now. And there's a difference, I think, among a lot of the folks in the party who are kind of, barking at the moon and claiming, getting into Twitter fights, and people who are standing up and fighting and getting things done, whether it's big tech in China. So who do you think is doing a good job within the party or the movement?
Well, I think Ron DeSantis is a good example of someone who's standing up to the radical left and doing what needs to be done, recognizing reality. I'd love to see more people acting like that. I think actually a lot of state legislatures are doing a really good job standing up to critical race theory and banning that toxic ideology from being taught to our children, our school children. It really is important that we fight this culture war, though. I know the old adage that politics is downstream of culture has maybe been repeated so often that it becomes old to us or becomes mundane to us, but it really is true. If we lose the culture war, then we've lost the political fight before we even get there. And if the last 5 years have taught us anything, it's that conservatives want bold leaders, not just in elected office, but doing what you do and doing what I do, being thought leaders too, and being able to identify reality versus the Democrats' delusion and fighting back against it instead of just playing defense.
Yes. I do want to talk to you about the culture war because Paul Ryan is set to speak this evening at the Reagan Library. And according to leaked experts, he is expected to say this in part: "We conservatives have to be careful not to get caught up in every little cultural battle. Sometimes these skirmishes are just creations of outraged peddlers, detached from reality and not worth anybody's time. They draw attention away from the far more important cases we must make to the American people." So do you agree with Paul Ryan that we shouldn't be engaging in these little cultural wars?
Well, no. I mean, the first thing that I would ask him is, what culture wars do you consider not to be consequential to the American way of life? Are you talking about our battle for religious freedom? Are you talking about our battle for public schools? Are you talking about our battle for free speech on universities? You're talking about our battle for the unborn, for family, for traditional marriage? What cultural battle are you referring to that's not worth fighting? Because every single cultural battle I can think of forms the institution that undergirds the foundation of our moral society, that makes us who we are as Americans, that makes us able to self-govern in our system of government. I think if we don't fight the culture war, then we're going to lose not only these institutions, but our whole idea of being a constitutional republic and self-governing ourselves. This has been the problem with what I call the squishes, the squishy Republicans in Washington, D.C. They don't have the fire in their belly to fight these difficult fights, sometimes because the topics like transgenderism or abortion or traditional marriage are uncomfortable to talk about, but they don't have what it takes to identify reality and say, nope, you don't get to redefine that. You don't get to impose your idea of tolerance on me when it's not really tolerance, it's your ideology. We're going to stand our ground and not back down to you.
I always think of it, these culture wars now, like Rudy Giuliani dealt with the broken windows when he was fighting crime in New York. If you let the little things go, then the big things happen. As soon as you start fighting the little things, you stop the big things from happening. So you're right on this. If we don't address these things when they're small, they become bigger, and you wake up one day and you don't recognize the country that we live in anymore. But a recent op-ed in the New York Times calls wokeness kryptonite for Democrats. Do you think that Republicans can unite on this issue to take Democrats down, especially in these midterm elections?
Well, it depends on who you're talking about when you say Republicans. If you're talking about the American people, I think the vast majority of the American people, both Democrat and Republican, liberal and conservative, are against wokeness. They realize how ridiculous cancel culture is. They realize how dangerous it is. If you're talking about Republicans in Washington, D.C., that I can't guarantee you that there will be a fight from them, because they seem to have made what I consider to be a fatal error. They accept the rule book that the left plays by. So Republicans are constantly trying to gain approval from the very radical leftists who want to destroy them by using the left's own standards. And if you do that, you've already lost the war, regardless of what battle you're fighting right there. So the American people, I think, that's why they crave bold leadership. They crave people who will identify reality, identify objective truth, and stand strong on the side of objectivity and reality and reject delusion and lie and falsehood from the left.
Agreed.
You know, you talk about in this op-ed that we shouldn't be on the defense, that we have to stop being on the defense. But when you look at the Republican Party right now, we're in the minority in every single way. So how do Republicans win? How do they stop being on the defense?
Well, I think one of the things that we need to recognize as Republicans is, yes, while we lost the House of Representatives, while we lost the presidency, while the Senate is, that close, we did not lose in state legislatures across the country. And state legislatures are oftentimes the best bulwarks of defense against whether it's critical race theory or whether it's radical abortion laws or, what have you, these politically correct assaults on free speech. State legislatures are where really important things happen. And in the 2020 election, Republicans won a large number of state houses, state assemblies, state senates, and governor seats across the country. So we do play offense in these small scale ways, and we just need to translate that onto the bigger scale as well.
Real quick before we go, and I don't have a lot of time, but in your op-ed, you say that we're winning the abortion messaging. Do you think, based on what we've talked about that all week, why do you think that?
Well, I think my generation, the millennial generation, can also be referred to as the refrigerator door generation. We grew up seeing the ultrasounds of our baby brothers and baby sisters pasted, photographically on the front of our refrigerators. We know that that's a human being in there. It's not hypothetical anymore. Science tells us that life begins at conception, from the moment of conception, and we hear a heartbeat at 6 weeks. We see those tiny little hands and feet. We see the development of this human child in utero throughout the whole of pregnancy, and you can't reconcile that humanity with the brutal, gruesome reality of what abortion is, which a lot of pro-life activists, including Live Action and Lila Rose, have done a great job getting the message out about what abortion actually is. You can't reconcile those two things. And so I think my generation sees the reality of the thing and therefore is pro-life.
Yeah, we got to talk about the science of it. We have to keep bringing that up. Liz, it's so great to have you here. Thanks for being with us tonight.
Thanks so much for having me.
Hey, I'm Rob Finnerty. Thanks for watching. If you enjoyed this video, please join the conversation in the comments below. Don't forget to subscribe, too. Hit the bell icon to be alerted to breaking news. And remember, there's a whole lot more on Newsmax TV, America's fastest growing cable news network. Newsmax TV, we're real news for real people.